we're going to have a great conversation. I hope everyone's enjoying the event. Thank you, Justice and Pablo. Just really a fantastic gathering, and we're so appreciative to be here. I'm Vicki Sashry, a longtime Florida journalist, do some writing for Forbes magazine, but the biggest hat that I wear, and kind of the most important hat that I wear these days, is working with the Florida High-Tech Corridor, who you'll be hearing from the CEO, Paul Soule, later on in the program. And I'm really thrilled to be here today with these great founders. One thing I've learned in the many decades of covering stories in the business world is that every founder has a story. Some of those stories are cautionary tales, but a lot of them are really inspiring. And these three guys have got startups that are on the rise, and so they're going to tell you their stories today, and hopefully you can draw some hard-won wisdom from their experiences. So we're going to get right to it. We have, starting on the far end of the stage there, Chris Wentz, who is the founder of EveryKey, which is a device that I personally need every single day, which is it unlocks all of your passwords, and then when you get up and walk away, it locks them again. So. Great to have you, Chris. We have Jordan Baker, who has been doing some really pioneering work at the intersection of gaming and experiential marketing with 3 companies now. Very impressive to have that many under your belt. And then we have Matt Donovan, who is a serial entrepreneur, who is the founder of Agriculture Intelligence, which is based here in Florida. He is doing really, really vital work to bring technology into farming and essentially save our food supply. So if you enjoyed your lunch, thank a farmer, right? So great. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much for today. And let's get started with the first question. We're going to start over there with Chris. So, and I'm glad we have so many students in the audience, because Chris, you started your company as a student at Case Western Reserve.
I did.
Yeah, pretty awesome, and you are still at it. And
I'm still at it.
Still at it. So tell us, what inspired you to start the company?
So we were in an entrepreneurship class. I studied computer science back at Case Western Reserve University, and we were in this entrepreneurship class because I just was taking it as an elective. The professor asked us to come up with any business idea we wanted. It could be a product or service that could make money, but more importantly, make an impactful change on the world. And we were talking about passwords and keys and how insecure and inconvenient they are. You know, I've got this piece of paper with all my passwords on it. I have a big bulky keyring that I have to take with me everywhere. And we presented to the class, what if we were to get rid of all of this broken and outdated access control technology and replace it with something better. And we presented to the class the idea of EveryKey, the revolution of access control, a device that replaces all your passwords and keys and unlocks your car door, your house door, your bike lock, your computer, your tablet, everything that you would use a key or password to unlock, and logs you into all your website accounts when you're around, and then locks everything down when you walk away.
Fantastic, great. And Matt, what's your founding story? What sort of inspired this? You are a serial entrepreneur, so let's talk about your latest venture. What inspired you to go into agriculture tech?
Well, I won't be lighting anything on fire.
Thank you.
Except the room. I'm going to light the room on fire.
Your personality will light.
So this is my second company I founded. The first company was in the telecommunications space, and I did pretty good with that, and then took some time off, and I'm here in Gainesville, and knew a fair amount of people at UF, and when I decided, I'm like, I think I want to do this again. And for you that are serial entrepreneurs or want to be that, think through that really carefully. But I contacted UF, and some folks there told me about a lot of different technologies, but I really gravitated towards what eventually became our flagship product, AgriView, and what it was, the potential it had in this industry or this sector. I saw it as a step change, and it fit well with the prior experiences that I had. So I started the company with the inventor of the AgriView platform as a co-founder, and we've been doing it ever since.
Great, great. And Jordan, tell us about your first of your 3 companies, and then tell us about the other 2.
So, in general, I, like many people here, thought, wow, my boss is an idiot. And if this guy is capable of running something that seems to be working, I should be able to as well. So that was really the precipice of creating our first advertising agency, which was created completely by accident. A couple buddies of mine, we would play Minecraft, we would stream Minecraft, and we thought, how can we get a Mr. Beast to play in our YouTube videos? So we started making Minecraft custom worlds, and it would invite streamers to participate in that. That ended up going extremely viral. We then started getting outreach from brands saying, hey, if you can get all of these eyeballs into a room for you who's a nobody, can you put our brands in there? Fast forward a little bit, we switched from doing solely UGC, being Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite experiences with brands, to running full 360 advertising, creating a ton of in-house tools that are proprietary, working directly with these platforms, publishers, and partners to make sure that if they change an algorithm, it doesn't kill the work that we're doing for our clients. That has been our global brand. That is Moonrock. That's where we do work and have been very proudly doing work with folks like Walmart, H&R Block, Ally Bank, tons of others. And we started to realize when you're working with these brands, they want you to predict where trends are going today, but they move at the snail's pace. So we have to satiate the desire of what they want now while predicting where the culture will be when the contract's signed. So we created 36 North. 36 North is our newest company. We actually opened up our doors about 2 months ago in partnership with 161, and our entire thesis is helping out VC-backed startups. If we can help Walmart earn more market share, we can definitely help your small business or startup earn more market share at a fraction of the price, and we really just want to see these kids build up something awesome.
So in doing that work, what were some of those really early challenges? Where you go from, if my dumb boss can run a company, so can I. Like, what was the first big challenge out of that transition?
Staff. So I come from a background where money was a resource that was not easily accessible to me. So one day I put out a tweet. I said, who can help me build these things? I can't pay you, but I promise you one day we'll get you taken care of. 6 people responded to that tweet. 6 people worked for me full time for about 6 months before they ever received a paycheck, and those 6 people still work for me today.
Oh, it's amazing. That's great. What about you, Matt? Early challenges?
Where do I start? That's the life of a founder, is all challenges and exciting things that happen. I mean, on the people side of it, as far as attracting the right talent, it can come from X, or it can come from, acquaintances that you have, people that you've worked with, people you have classes with, perhaps. I always thought it was, it's skill fit, and it has a lot more to do with the person that, what they're looking to get out of it. Like, that people might have been getting experience, of doing something, as well as a paycheck eventually. Like, those are all sort of similar stories, I think, that startup founders, will experience. That's been my experience.
Mm-hmm. How was it you licensed your technology from an inventor here at University of Florida?
It was through the Office of Technology and Licensing.
How is that? Because one really interesting place that I'm even seeing young innovators starting their companies is they're now starting to realize that universities have tons of technology sitting on the shelf waiting to be licensed.
It's very true, and the University of Florida specifically has an incredible stock of really great technologies. I've reviewed probably a half a dozen technologies in that process, guided by some of the team at OTL. If you're an entrepreneur new, or if you're getting back into starting a company, it's a great place to start. When I found the AgriView platform, I was impressed with the technology, but when I met with the inventor, my co-founder, Dr. Yannis Ampitzidis, it was the connection that we had and the ability for us to work as a team. That was what really drove forward, like, we're founding this company, but we're going to pull the technology license out of UF and go to market and commercialize it, which we've been doing for the last 5 years. But that is a very good resource for people who feel like they have the know-how, maybe they have the underlying values or characteristics of being a founder, but they need a technology start. Maybe they're not a technologist. I happen to have, had the prior experience I had with it helped identify the qualities in a co-founder or someone who I'd be working with on delivering this product to the commercial space. So you got to do your homework, but OTL is great about showing the technologies that are available and then walking you through how the licensing process works, which is a little bit of a labor, but if it's the right fit for you and you have the ambition to bring a very high quality, defensible product to market, it's a great resource to start with. In addition to your own innovations that you might come up with, which is my first company, I wrote the first line of code and got it somewhat successful and realized, I'm not as good an engineer as I actually think I am. I'm just not, but guess what? We have a product. So it can come from both places, but OTL is a great place to start.
It's fantastic. But Chris, you are an inventor, right? So your challenge, coming up with this idea, inventing the device, and then trying to turn it into a business.
Well, I have a lot smarter people than me working at Every Key that are doing the real work. So I don't know, inventor, I guess so. Let's see. I had my best friend at the time was our first engineer at Every Key, and we ran into this brick wall. We couldn't figure out how to make one Bluetooth device talk to and ultimately unlock multiple Bluetooth devices simultaneously, right? It's right there in my company name, Every Key. It's got to work with multiple devices. If it's only unlocking your computer, it's not really your Every Key anymore, right? It's just your computer key. And we were just hitting our heads against the wall, couldn't find a solution to it. And my best friend, our first engineer, quit the company and said, Chris, this isn't going to be a reality. You're not going to be able to make this product live up to its name. We continued to think about solutions. We eventually came up with just sort of a stupid, simple solution where we're, without getting too much into the details, we're using Bluetooth advertising packets, your phones sending out advertising packets that's saying, hey, this is my phone. Do you want to connect with me? And we're just adding a bit of encrypted data to that. Anyway, we found a solution, and now we patented that solution, and it's like the #1 piece of intellectual property, one of the biggest values of our company. And there's a company, can't say the name, but big publicly traded company that you guys have all heard of that's going to be rolling us out onto 400 million computers next year because of that patent, because of what we built, and because of us overcoming that challenge. So, sorry. Just got kind of dry mouth.
Interesting.
But basically, your challenges can become some of your biggest opportunities and biggest assets.
Yeah. Now, sometimes your challenges comes from making a mistake. Were there mistakes that you made early on that you discern lessons from that kind of guide you today? So what are some of those that you reflect on, like like I said, the hard-won wisdom of
I think, when I started Every Key, I was a college student that thought I could conquer the world, thought I knew everything. I walked into a VC's office, and they were talking about the car industry, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how much you know about the car industry, but here's how I see it. And I found out afterwards that guy was the former CEO of Chrysler. And, pretty cocky of me to say that, I guess, obviously. But I think, taking a step back and realizing that other people have experience that you can learn from, and taking feedback and then aggregating that feedback. Take feedback from 100 people, aggregate that feedback, and you're likely to come up with the best solution. They say that if you guess how many gumballs are in a bowl, you're going to get the answer wrong. The next person's going to get the answer wrong. But if you average everybody that's guessing, you're going to get something really close to the actual number of gumballs in that machine. And I think the same thing applies to any problem solving.
Mm-hmm. And Jordan, you said that building the team was one of your biggest challenges, and that's a really touchy challenge. It's a difficult challenge to navigate personnel. You look back on what you learned from that. Were there mistakes? Were there things that you wish you knew what you knew then, what you know now, that you could go back and adjust?
I wish that I would have created an authentic culture internally earlier on. I felt this big weight of having these people who are relying on the success and the decisions that I make to have a successful life and career. And I really over-indexed on this, we need to be a big company, we need to think like a big company, and we were extremely bureaucratic for no reason. Actually, my now fiance and I had a conversation early on, and she said, why don't you just treat your staff like friends? And our internal culture, productivity, the talent that we're able to acquire has shifted so dramatically. We don't do tons of meetings. We hop into a Discord text thread and we chat every day. We leave the entire team to be incredibly autonomous, to be empowered to work on whatever it is they want to work on. We don't care where you work. We don't care where you live. We don't care if you're taking the call on the beach. And it's so contrary to what I, with little information, was led to believe is how you run a business. It needed structure. It needed a rigidity. But once we removed that and allowed things to be fluid, we saw so much happier staff, which led to greater product and more money for the company.
I'll pick up on that because I think there's a matter of fluidity with the team dynamics that you're talking about can be balanced against, creating a flexible yet enduring and transmittable culture. And in both of the companies that I've had the pleasure to lead and be responsible for, we do have a very deep understanding and commitment to what I call real teamwork, which most people say, oh, that's kind of a cliche, but we define 9 values that comprise real teamwork, and they are honesty, empathy, authenticity, humility, which is pretty important, responsiveness, courtesy, confidentiality, mercy, and mutuality. And that is the foundation for we hire for skill, obviously, but when we were evaluating the team people, the friends that we want to have, the good people that we want to work with at both places, both companies that I've led, that's really the foundation of a quality culture. And then you fit into the sort of fluid situation of developing software solutions and expediting things. So I think that is an enduring value. It's a timeless value. It's industry agnostic. And having a set of values that everybody can respond to, can strive for, it not only creates an actual real teamwork, ambiance, but it actually can be transmitted. So as the company grows, from founder 0 to the first 5 to the next 5 to 10, 50, everybody that's there understands very clearly. In our company, we ascribe what is and what is not each of those values, and whether each and every person, founder included, and maybe specifically, has to exercise those qualities every day. At every moment, and that feels real serious and heavy, and it should, because there's a responsibility that a founder has and the responsibility to the team, and then the responsibility that each of the team members has with one another, and that's actually adds to the fire of getting on the Discord and getting the work done. And ultimately, it's about the work. So we ascribe those values to the work that's done. And I have found that that's a very important part of building a cohesive and coherent team that can deliver for the customers. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about an exciting, product like yours, or marketing, or delivering for, the growers and farmers, that develop our food. Those are fundamental things that are the construct of a quality team that can endure.
Do you feel that when you're out there looking for investment or for someone to get behind your company, that atmosphere you've created, that could just be a huge selling point? And the flip side of that is if your team is not cohesive and is not based and rooted in some values like that, investors can sense that, and that might scare them away when they see a little looming dysfunction in the team.
I didn't take an investment in my first company, but we're pursuing that now, and I think it's true. I think it's hard maybe sometimes the team slide is, there's the founder, and there's the co-founder, and there's the board of advisors. But those values, I think, I think they have a very positive appeal. I know that everybody on our very still somewhat small team, they're already bought into it, and that's mostly what I'm focused on, and for myself too. But I do think it's an important part for an outside a customer or an investor to understand that we're a values-based company, and we still work at the same pace of what every software development company, we are an AI software development company ultimately. So the pace of our work is actually it gets calibrated well against those values. Like responsiveness is one of our values, but people have to do the work that they need to contribute to the other team members there, so that we just sort of have a series of, hey, we're going to get into a chat. Everybody's on board. Responsiveness is a check mark. If you have a longer form email, it's like, okay, just do your work and be responsive. So I think those are, something that might be a little hard to put on a deck page, but hopefully, the investors that you might engage, if you have these kind of values, I think they're easy to pick up on. I think that, it is something that's, it's not really something that is, it's tangible enough, even if it's intangible qualities. But when you live that way and you strive to live that way, I think most people, it's pretty clear to them.
Pick up on it, yeah. Now, Chris, you have a really interesting situation that you have a distributed team, but you are managing them from
From the Philippines, yeah. I live in Manila.
So how's that
right
working for you?
It's working out pretty well.
Yeah.
When I was living here in the U.S., I just realized that I was always really tired if I had to wake up at 9 a.m. I'm more of a night owl, right? So I moved to Manila, where we've got lower cost of living, everybody speaks English, and I can work in the middle of the night, so I start my work day, at like 8 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and then work until 5, 6 in the morning, and it's nice. Everybody in my company works on Eastern Standard Time hours, Tampa, whatever, Florida hours, but we're all over the world, and I love it. I think that you can't create it's harder to create a good company culture over Zoom. At one point we were all in person, and we were talking about team and investors investing in team. Investors invest in people, they don't invest in companies, right? And when they're first investing, they might only meet you and your other co-founders. Once they meet the team, a good investor like 161 is going to make introductions for you. They're going to go that extra mile, and you have to make sure that you have a really good relationship with everybody on your team. You have to build a really strong team. And back when we were in person, our office was in Little Italy, and we would all go to an Italian restaurant on Friday night after we're done working, and we were all just best buds and everything, and you can't get that quite as much on Zoom. So I do miss those days of everybody working together in person, but you can still build a good company culture just by treating people right, and still run a pretty awesome remote company.
Yeah. So Jordan, since we touched on investing and what investors are looking for in a company, what have been some of the big surprises for you out there raising money for your companies?
So I actually have never raised money for the advertising companies. I got this really excited idea just after COVID, where everybody I knew was getting these massive checks for products that did not feel like they deserved the amount of money. And I said, oh, I could do that. This is actually how I met Pablo and the entire 161 team. I came up with an idea and I raised $500K. It was the most brutal experience I've ever had. And one of my first investor meetings was with Pablo, and he said, don't focus on that. Focus on the company you care about, which is the advertising agency. 4 months in, I gave every dollar back, and I closed the company. I came out of pocket and paid all the investors back. And I say this to say, I think that there's this really big overemphasis on needing to be a venture-backed company. I think that a lot of people, especially youth, try to build something that they think an investor would want to invest in. When if your goal is to simply make money, and that is an okay goal as a founder, we can be selfish in saying that don't do something that requires you to ultimately have a boss. Don't do something that is going to ultimately dictate how much you can pay yourself and how much you can pay your employees and the way that you run your business. Go start something that isn't sexy, that makes a ton of cash, if that's your goal. If your goal is to go raise money, make sure you care more about the product than the cash that you could or could not potentially make.
And Chris, you're also a 161 company. What are some of the surprises from the investor landscape for you?
Yeah, we're kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. We've raised from like 42 different investors, and you're right. You give up a lot of control. You give up a lot of say in like how things are going to run. These people define everything about the business, and really, you can structure it in a way where that stuff isn't the case, where they're not on your board of directors, they don't have much control. But if you're going to try to raise money from investors, you have to tell a certain story. You have to like check a few certain boxes. That's like 90% of my time is like fundraising, and in some cases it's like really fun. It's really fun when you haven't fundraised in a while and you're going out there and sharing all the progress that your business has made and everything. But there's other times where it feels like kind of a waste of time, and it's like, hey, it would be really good to just be work on my business right now. Of those like 42 investors that I have, there's some that most of them are kind of inactive, right? They just sort of leave us alone and everything, let us do our thing, ask for like updates once every 3 months. But then there's like really influential ones like 161 that actually, make a lot of introductions for us, help us get in front of other investors, customers, key employees, executive hires, things like that. And those are the kind of investors that you want. There are the ones that will actually go that extra mile, that put in more than just their money and actually contribute to the business in a more meaningful way. Those investors can actually move you forward. So I would say that even though there are some negatives to investors, like you pointed out, it's been a net positive for me. I've found a lot of value out of the folks that have invested in me, and I'm learning a lot from them. Right? I'm always taking notes. I'm a constant student of life and trying to learn how to best run a company, learn how to best develop technology, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what advice would you give to young founders just getting out there, having that first pitch or that first meeting? What sticks in your mind when you're getting ready to have that conversation that you kind of resort to as your foundation of how you pitch your value proposition?
I mean, if you're endeavoring to start a business to pursue whatever end, put your energy behind it. Give it 100%. Be honest with yourself. When you go to talk to anybody about like, hey, I'm pursuing this big giant goal or a very focused goal, like represent that, but bring 100% of what you have. I mean, there's a lot about just the commitment to go in front of someone to like, let me tell you about what we're doing and why it's important. Just make sure you get those points across and bring a lot of, the positive energy of like, why would you be pursuing this to begin with? Mm-hmm. So if you're pursuing that, give it everything. Just like that's the great advice. Like if you're doing something, give it everything you've got. Yeah. If you fail, you haven't failed. Mm-hmm. You've literally done what you can.
Yeah. Now I have some questions that are sort of specific to these individual founders and their companies. That as I was doing some research just really jumped out of me. I'd love to hear you go a little bit deeper on this. And I'm going to start with Chris. Time? Okay, Chris, real quick. Overcoming skepticism. What advice can you give?
Lightning round.
About overcoming skepticism, particularly as a college-age founder with a brand new piece of something that no one's ever seen before.
Fake it till you make it, and then there's things that you can do to build legitimacy for your company. We got security audits for our hardware and our software and everything. Find out what people are looking for and deliver to that. But yeah, there's a lot of sort of putting on a good show and bringing out the positive parts of your company.
Yeah. Now, Matt, you are in agriculture tech. It's not just creating new technologies. You're remaking a sector that has existed for millennia. What is the challenge quickly on balancing just not changing or informing people about your technology, but changing the mindset of where that technology gets applied?
So millennia is right. Most people would think agriculture is slow, and as a function of time, it is. But I would say, in my observation, it's methodical, and it should be, because if we don't have food, kind of a bad deal for us, everybody in here. But the exciting thing is, at least what we're doing with agriculture intelligence, we're at the beginning of the fourth era in a major step change in agriculture. It went from mechanization, then fertilization, and then genomics. And each of these eras has generated trillions of dollars of value and continues today. So where we're at with how AI is going to be a complete change, again, like these previous eras, and we're just starting that process, but we can look back to these previous eras that range back decades, and we can easily see the outcomes of the companies that were part of each of those eras, the value they created. So it gives us a bright spot on, yes, it's methodical or slow, but the impact of what we're doing, we can look back and see there's trillion-dollar value companies and entire adjacent supporting industries that have come out of each of these eras. And we're now in the era of AI for agriculture, and our company is well positioned with the scalable infrastructure to do that. And it kind of makes it a bit of a reassurance about we can be one of those types of companies for the future.
Absolutely. And for Jordan, you have a really interesting story to tell around measuring success, and it's around the philanthropy that your companies create. So tell the audience about how you have added an element of success definition to what you're doing.
Yeah, mission first was, I hate my boss, I think I could do it better. Mission 2 was, I grew up in a not great situation. So through that, we've been able to collect resources from influencers, big brands, and donations, and donate over $1 million or about $1 million to charity and over $1 million to the creator economy. So smaller streamers, influencers, etc. And as that mission has changed even further to kind of money anyone can have. Money is an infinite. We can print it forever. Time is the most limited resource we have. So as our mission is once again shifted to giving back, it's been focused around 36 North's whole goal of helping startups. If we can give you time that is going to give you more time and a bigger chance and opportunity to be a successful company, then that is how we measure success and impact. So money, time, energy.
Mm-hmm. But giving back from the start, that's amazing and really significant. So I know we are out of time, but thank you all. Best of luck in all that you're doing. And I'm sure we'll all be excited to see what comes next for you. Thank you.